TMZ Live, Harvey Levin here.
Charles here.
So, Meghan and Harry had quite the night. It started out very glamorous with a lot of acclaim. Meghan got an award, and it was a very glitzy event. We'll get into that in a minute. But the headline turns out not to be what happened at the event, it's what happened after.
Right. As their spokesperson describes it, and as we have confirmed with independent sources, that there was a harrowing, in fact, they say near catastrophic 2-hour chase around New York City, paparazzi chasing them. And it all started right here. This is around 10 p.m. as they left the Ziegfeld Theater and they got into their SUV. Well, what happened once they got in that SUV is a chase that at times got up to speeds of 80 miles per hour. And I know you may be thinking, where in New York City are you going to drive 80 miles per hour?
That would be the FDR.
The FDR Drive on the east side of Manhattan. They were doing 80, trying to shake photographers who were chasing them.
And they were right on their tail.
Yeah, and they had, this was not just Harry and Meghan in their single SUV. They actually had an entourage that, it's clear that they anticipated some of this.
Clearly, they were in an SUV. There were 2 security SUVs that were tailing them, and then there was a 4th SUV that eventually was used to try and block traffic to thwart the paparazzi that were following them.
Right.
Now, they say that pedestrians were almost hit, cars were almost hit, a couple of police officers almost
were involved,
hit.
Right.
So I know this sounds crazy, but we have confirmed, like Charles said, that this really did last 2 hours. So there were times when they went to various police stations trying to get some help.
Trying to get help or trying to
get
shake
cover.
the paparazzi. So the video we're about to show you, this is them almost an hour and a half after leaving the theater. They've been in this chase. They've been on the FDR going 80 miles per hour. And now they've gone back to a police precinct and they get into a yellow cab. They get out of their SUV. They get into a yellow cab.
And it's to shake the paparazzi. They're figuring nobody would think they'd get in the yellow cab. So they get in it at the police station and drive away. And they're thinking, we're going to shake the paparazzi.
But
that did not
clearly,
happen.
you can see the paparazzi knew they were there. That's their security guard who gets out of the front seat and is trying to get the photographers to back up.
You can see the thinking behind getting in a yellow cab. It might blend in more with all of the other yellow cabs in New York City so they could sort of make a hasty retreat and lose the paps, but it didn't work at all. And this does sound absolutely harrowing. People driving the wrong way, apparently cars getting up on sidewalks. And for Harry, this has to be traumatizing because his mother was killed during a pap chase in Paris in 1997 when he was just 12 years old. So all those memories had to come flooding back when he's in the car.
So this cab that left that police station kind of circled, apparently, and then came back, I don't know, 15 minutes later.
10, 15 minutes later, goes back to the precinct. They get out of the cab.
And got back in the SUV that they were in originally, because I'm guessing here they didn't want the cab driver to
be
try and
involved
well, also they don't know how good of a driver he is.
Yeah. And by the way, the cab driver himself might have been like, I don't want any part of this. I didn't know that there was a chase going on.
Right.
So they
came back to the precinct, got in an SUV, and this lasted until midnight. Now, a lot of people have kind of suggested or wondered, why didn't they just go to the place where they were going to stay? Well, the answer we got was they didn't want bedlam at that place. They were staying at a friend's house.
Right, staying at a friend's house, private residence, and they had the photographers following them at that point. They just didn't want to bring all of that chaos to their friend. And so they made the decision to drive around until it all died down. And
so their people issued this statement.
Last night, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and Ms. Ragland, because Meghan's mom was there, were involved in a near catastrophic car chase at the hands of a ring of highly aggressive paparazzi. This relentless pursuit, lasting over 2 hours, resulted in multiple near collisions involving other drivers on the road, pedestrians, and 2 NYPD officers. While being a public figure comes with a level of interest from the public, it should never come at the cost of anyone's safety. So, yeah, I got to imagine once we got the information about them being on the FDR and doing 80 miles an hour,
it all made sense.
That is the moment where Harry's got to think, this is what happened to my mother.
This is what happened to my mother.
Because they were speeding down that through that tunnel in Paris, trying to avoid the paparazzi.
So you got to wonder, and this is something we talked about today in our morning meeting, that, why this and not when, say, Kim Kardashian or just the other day, we showed you Taylor Swift coming out of a recording studio at 2 in the morning, and there were all these paparazzi there, but they stayed. And there's a difference.
I think the big difference here, and Charles pointed this out, is the rarity of the occasion.
Right.
I mean, these are the royals in New York. You don't see them all the time. Kim goes back and forth between New York, so those photos are somewhat less valuable, for lack of a better word, even given to how famous she is. You don't see Meghan and Harry out all that often in New York, so those photos can be very, very valuable.
It's interesting, too.
And particularly overseas.
And by the way,
that's what all those photographers were thinking, but that's not a justification for what went on there last night.
And, they are in Southern California. That's where they live. They live in Montecito. They've been coming to L.A. on a fairly regular basis these days.
Right.
It hasn't happened in L.A. either.
Right.
But I think part of that is that they are here, and I guess people kind of acclimate to that. And for whatever reason, because we thought, when we first heard about this morning, we thought the paparazzi would probably try and tell a different story. They didn't. They told the same story that Harry and Meghan told us.